Guys, PSA, I am officially a six-figure funded trader. Welcome back to this week's review, and geez, we've officially done it. I feel so neutral. It's crazy because building up to I felt a lot more excited, a lot more euphoric, coming off of last week where I shared with you that I would be pausing to finish off this week on my current plan before I implement any changes that may throw a spanner in the works. I think that decision really played out well this week in that there was only one position I took. It was pound JPY long, set minimum 1:2 risk to reward, fixed TP, even though I'm at a stage where I can allow for more of that upside to be captured with a much more flexible management strategy. But I didn't need that because we were that close. And I really waited for that trade. There were a few other opportunities that I could have taken early in the week, but I think I'm so glad that I exercised a lot of patience, a lot of restraint in this week where there really was a lot riding on it. I knew and I was conscious throughout it how close I was to this. I mean, I shared that with you guys multiple times in this past review, even on my Instagram stories and some of the posts, just reiterating how close we are, and the fact that I managed to maintain that composure this week and filter out what could have been some low quality setups that would have just set me back and really just focused on higher quality setups. And that's just paid off quite nicely. And that was the only trade I took this week. Obviously, the account I passed after that, and there's some admin that needs to be done, and obviously heading into a much more intensive back testing sort of week as I really now grapple with some of the big changes that I'm making to the plan. But geez, 32 weeks later, because if you've noticed, every single weekly review, besides passing phase one, has had, the stock standard template. And I did that very intentionally. I wanted to take you guys on this journey of passing my first prop firm challenge. I've done a few in the past. I started on a 5K, timed out on that. That was still when we had the time limits. Went on to the 10K. That was on my Forex funds. And that was obviously before they went bust. And then moved on to a 10K FTMO. The motivation just wasn't there. It wasn't a big enough goal. And shared that as we prepared for the 100K challenge. And starting the 100K challenge, I knew that I wanted this phase to have its own signature period of weekly reviews. So you know what that looks like. You can go back to week one of this challenge, and it's so cool that I'll eventually watch it back. Probably not anytime soon because the emotion and everything is so fresh. But you can literally follow my journey for 32 weeks. I think I must have skipped maybe 1 or 2 weeks in that time. But I remain so consistent, so disciplined. And I think the reason I feel so neutral is because I'm just not surprised, to be honest. It makes sense. And you get to that point in your trading where you're doing all the right things and you're taking all the right actions, and sooner or later the outcome has to align with the work that you're putting in. And so this feels like it was supposed to happen, and it really feels like it was a matter of time. And I think throughout and maybe in the latter part of the journey, I felt as though it's just a matter of time. And I think that's just so cool because that documents really one part of the journey. And that's the part from, you can call it zero to funded. And there's a lot that a trader kind of deals with in that time as you're developing the faculties for consistency. And this series I think highlights that so well. And it's just exciting because now I'm almost moving into this new phase of We can call them the weekly reviews, and I'll probably call them that for a little bit, but it'll change over time, where over and above performance, I can now start to share, I think, more of the skills and value that I have to add on the financial planning side as I start to, generate payouts, consistent payouts, is the goal. And showing you guys how to best do that, because a lot there's a lot of content around strategy and mindset and all of that, but I don't think anybody's really sharing how to manage the success of being a consistently profitable trader. How do you do that efficiently? What are the most tax efficient structures to withdraw your payouts into? How do you manage that? And trading it's really a business, and it generates revenue. But what do you do with that? How do you recognize profits? And how do you not inflate your lifestyle to a point where it becomes unsustainable? I think there's so much value that I can share around this next phase of the journey as I also transition into it. And I'll share that in a very transparent way, because that's what I'll be grappling with and dealing with. And I'm so keen to do that. Obviously, there's going to be that, but then also just more on, certain topics within the Daily Nuggets. If I want to go into a technical concept in a bit more detail, psychological concept in a bit more detail, it feels like I'm not limited to kind of just tracking the performance, because I knew I wanted to do that very consistently up till this point of being funded. And so here we are, and we're marking a new phase of the journey. And if you've been with me to this point, regardless of where you kind of joined on the journey, just want to thank you. And really, it's been a combination of my own consistency and discipline, but also how I've seen this helping all of you that comment and reach out to me and mention how much value I'm adding to your own journey. And that was the intention of this. And just so grateful to be doing this, so grateful to be on this path, and just looking forward to breaking so many more barriers, because this was a huge barrier that I feel like I've broken, and it's so validating. And fuck, officially a funded trader. As always, consistency is the choice you make when you start doing the things you should be doing day in and day out.